way. Pregnant ladies and little kids better get the hell out of the way because I am running. I'm like Forrest Gump, dude. I am running. So the Titanic was the biggest ship on the ocean, but that didn't mean it was unsinkable.
I want you each to use ombudsman in a sentence next week.
I got one for you. My name is Kevin, the official ombudsman of the Just Press Play podcast. You like apples?
Welcome back to another edition of the Just Press Play pod. We're a little shorthanded today. We're just recording. It's me and Pops. We have no LJ today. Some things got in the way, but we are back here, Pops, and a crazy game. What was that, 5 that we just got done watching yesterday?
Yeah. Game 5.
So the people said they wanted that. Some people I heard were acting like they were a little bored with the finals, and it wasn't maybe as interesting and intriguing as they were hoping the NBA finals would be. I would say Game 5 brought all the intrigue that you could ask for. It was we're going to get into that, a little Stanley Cup. I maybe have a couple other things I want to bring up. By the way, Dad, the Hogs, your Arkansas Razorbacks, are back, headed to Omaha, going to the College World Series. Pretty big news going on around here. I think the whole area of the Northwest Arkansas is just ecstatic right now with the Razorbacks going back to Omaha.
How many teams go to Omaha? I don't guess.
8 teams go to Omaha.
Only 8.
And interestingly, Fayetteville, Arkansas is the closest college town out of the 8 still remaining to Omaha as far as travel time. And I think they're the closest. I saw one local radio guy said he did the math, and that Fayetteville's actually, I think it's 6 hours to Omaha driving, which is 3 hours closer than any other college town is driving distance. That's in the tournament. So last year was a really good turnout with Arkansas fans, and I bet there will be again. There's going to be a sea of red, I think, coming back. And especially after what last year was, I think fans are really excited to try to avenge last year's just gut-wrenching loss. For those who don't remember, that can of corn.
That can of corn that fell right in the middle of 3 guys. Oh,
yeah. So
that was in the final, wasn't it?
That was in the final. Yeah, that was actually
that would have won the game.
Yeah, they had already won. Yeah, they just needed one more win in the final series against Oregon State. But yeah, so
to catch that can of corn, it was over, right?
Yeah, that was it. That was the third out that would have ended it. So tough loss for Arkansas fans. But I know a ton of people are getting ready to go, and I wanted to go ahead. It's a little quick. We usually wait a little later in the show to tell you about these friends. But if you're thinking about going, I actually searched it right before we started recording, and there are tickets still available on SeatGeek. They are going up as we talk. And right now, if you're a listener of the JPP pod, you can go on to SeatGeek, put in the promo code ACAA at checkout, and receive $20 off your first purchase. So you can get your tickets to the College World Series and get a little $20 off your purchase. And
20
they ain't
bones.
cheap. They ain't cheap, and they're not cheap just about anywhere you go. And SeatGeek, the one thing that's really neat about SeatGeek is they kind of take the confusion out of your ticket buying experience. And instead of shopping a dozen of different sites for the best deal, SeatGeek kind of puts it all together for you. Their app will scan the web for all the best deals to your favorite games, concerts, or shows, and rate them on a scale of 0 to 10 to let you know if you're getting the best bang for your buck. They'll have a green dot that marks a great deal, a yellow dot that's a not so good deal, and then a red dot for the bad deals. And as we said, right now, if you put in the promo code ACAA at checkout, receive $20 off your first purchase. So that's 2 free beers at the stadium on us. And whether you're going to the College World Series or a concert or wherever you're trying to go, life is an event, and SeatGeek has the tickets. All right. We'll wait on the College World Series breakdown because that'll come a little later. We probably won't ever break it down big time, but I'm sure
we'll probably talk about it a little more.
Yeah, with the Hogs in it, I'm sure we'll get a little talking. But we got to get to the big news, and that is Game 5, Warriors Raptors. Warriors extend the series. They win 106-103, win by 3. The big news, obviously, Kevin Durant re-injured in the second quarter. Do we want to start there, Pops, or do we want to kind of start at the end of the game, kind of how the game wrapped up?
Well, if you're asking me, I'd start kind of at the beginning because let me just throw this out there. It started off, I think, Durant hit his first 3 from long range. I think Curry. I want to say they were like 6 for 6 as a team from downtown.
They hit, I think the first 6 and I think I saw 8 of the first 12. I mean, they were hitting. It wasn't just Durant. Clay, Curry, Durant, Draymond Green got in on the action.
Everybody hitting. But what kind of shocked me a little bit is that even though they started out really hot, they were still, Toronto was never out of the game in the first day. It seemed like they got up about 10 at one point, and kind of hung out there. But Toronto, even as good as Golden State was playing, the Raptors were hanging in there. They kept it close. And then, then I got, what was it, 12 minutes in, the event occurred that we're going to definitely talk about a little bit.
Well, so it was actually, the injury happened at 10 minutes left in the second quarter. So about 14 minutes into the game. Okay. To that point, Durant had played 12 of the first 14 minutes. And I know some have talked about, that seems like a lot of minutes you're putting on KD coming off an injury like this and coming off, he hadn't played in a while. But to your point, and I'm glad you started there because that was my thought. I wanted to look up kind of the full stats on that, and the Warriors were only up 5 when KD went out, and that's with KD having played 12 of the first 14, as we just said. Yeah. And the Warriors were shooting 8 from 12 from 3. And to further that point, the lead wasn't that big, and the Warriors are shooting lights out. And Kawhi Leonard, the best player on the court, he only had 5 points on 2 for 6 shooting and 2 turnovers. So he wasn't even playing good. Mm-hmm. And the Warriors were hitting threes, and they still were only up 5. So I don't know if you're blaming Steve Kerr. I see some people saying, why is Kerr playing him so much early? But it's game 5, backs against the wall, and you're making everything, and you're still barely beating this team, and their best player hadn't even got going yet. So I'm kind of with you. I was shocked to see the Raptors still in it, and it seems like that's been the story of the series to me, where a team is like, if you're not watching the scoreboard and they took that off the screen, you would say Team X should be up by 15 right now, and then we'll end up going into half, and the Raptors are only up 5, or the Warriors are only up 5. And they let teams hang. And so I don't know if I blame Kerr for leaving Durant in there like that, because another thing I thought is, my first thought was, even if Durant's not healthy, the fact that you just throw him on a 3-point line, even if he's just a spot-up shooter, how much you have to respect him. And you saw early him hitting those first 3 threes, how much he opens up the offense for everyone else. But at the same time, is Kevin Durant a player of his magnitude and someone who's in his prime basketball-wise? If he's out there, is he really going to – he's probably going to go 100%. He just doesn't know how else to play, does he?
I think you're right, Kevin. And certainly there is so much room to second guess, and this is going to go on for a while ad nauseum.
By the way, we're recording this as of Tuesday night. The MRI, we haven't seen confirmation of a torn Achilles, but that's what the Warriors are fearing, which, as you're saying, will go on. That's what, an 8-month injury at the least? So.
Well, so much to say about it, but the point I was going to make is, I do think, had I been Steve Kerr, I probably would have tried to play him 6 minutes and get him out for 6 minutes, or I would have eased him in a little more. And I don't want to quit. I love Steve Kerr. I think he's one of the greatest coaches ever. I like him as a person. I like him as a coach. It does seem like they would have eased him into that just a little bit more, or told him, gosh, just stand out there on the 3-point line for a little bit. Just stand there. They've got to respect you. Don't worry. Because it was kind of an attempt at a move, is when it looked, for everything I could see in slow motion, like his Achilles popped to me. But one thing I do want to say before I forget, and I can't remember who I heard say this, obviously, and I know you are too. I'm a big fan of Bill Simmons and Brian Rosillo, and I listened to some of that pod, and I think it might have been Simmons said that he had heard somebody mention that the Knicks lost Game 5 in the playoffs, and it really is true. That KD injury, and I know we'll get to this, and it's probably a good night with LJ not here, but that has some resounding effects on free
waves.
agency.
That had ripple effects all throughout, not just this finals, but in July when the free agency period opens up. And we will definitely touch on a little bit of that.
Yes, we'll get on.
And we'll get on. I want to talk a little more Durant injury and kind of my thoughts on it, and your thoughts as well, and maybe some about the Raptors. But let's go to the game back where we were talking. So. Right after that injury, you see the Raptors kind of make a surge, but really the Warriors weathered the storm because DeMarcus Cousins, who himself is coming back from injury, really had a big couple of minutes where he scored, I think, the next 7 points in the game and for the Warriors and really played big. And I've really respected Cousins for a guy who he had a big game 2 and then has looked tough ever since then. I think he scored 14 in game 2 and has scored 11 since in the next 3. And so it's been a tough go for him. And I really thought he was giving it everything he could and played big. And then kind of fast forward, the next second quarter and third quarter, the game just this felt like a game 7 in a way. Like the Warriors were playing as if, obviously, back against the wall, and the Raptors were playing.
Game. Yeah.
And I loved how the Raptors were playing. They were playing like they didn't seem like a team that were up 3-1. A lot of times in this situation, you get a team where you just can't match the intensity that the Warriors have because their backs are literally against the wall. It's an elimination game, as you said. Mm-hmm. And the Raptors know it's hard not to think in the back of your head, but we still got 2 more shots.
Right.
And they kept every time, whether it was the early in the first when the Warriors were hitting threes or later in that second or third, every time the Warriors would get 6 or 9 straight points, it seemed like the Raptors always answered. And then I have to talk about, I think I want to fast forward here and stop me if you want to go somewhere else, but the fourth quarter, about 5 minutes left, Kawhi Leonard, just all-time stuff. All-time Michael Jordan, Magic. Put them on the Mount Rushmore things. You're looking back at this as like a career-defining moment. It was amazing. What were your thoughts watching that?
Were you on? But you have. I'm sitting there watching that. I like the Raptors fine. I like Kawhi Leonard, but I'm pulling for the Warriors. I just love their basketball. I think that's pretty obvious to anybody that listens to us. When he went on that tear, like you said, he came in 5-6 minutes in or whatever and scored maybe 12 straight points or something. It was ridiculous. I was like, there's no way. Toronto's got this. And I think they wound up being up, which I know we're going to get to in a little bit, up 6 points with around 3:05 left when something happened we'll definitely talk about. But before we get to that, I'm with you. Kawhi Leonard played as good in that 3 minutes as any human basketball player I've ever seen.
And to your point, do we know? I don't know if we know for sure whether Kawhi is human or not, but he was at that point. I don't believe he was, and he does this thing, and that's kind of what I've decided. I think what makes the next level superstars, where Kawhi Leonard will have those games, and we've talked about this, where he doesn't seem like he's playing a great game, and then all of a sudden the little stat will pop up at the bottom, and it's like, oh, by the way, Kawhi just scored his 29th point, also has 12 rebounds and 5 assists. Like, he just, regardless of how it looks like he's playing, the numbers are just there every time. And he only scored 26 in the game. I say only because at that point, before that little run, I think that was he single-handedly went on a 8-3 run on his own. And at one point it was an 8-0, I think. Or it was a 10-3 run by Kawhi Leonard on his own. So before that run, he only had 16. Really wasn't playing that good of a game. I think he was shooting at that point like 6 for 18. Not shooting great. And then here's the possessions. He goes, Kawhi 3, takes the lead at 96-95. Kawhi, the next possession, Kawhi takes a tough drive, pull up, 98-95. Then Draymond Green goes down there, weathers the storm, hits a 3. Kawhi comes right back down. The next Raptors offensive possession, another 3, and then comes down again, a pull-up floater on Klay Thompson. So he goes on his own 10-3 run. And as you said, 3:05 left in the game. Nick Nurse calls a timeout when it looks like Kawhi Leonard is just doing whatever. The Warriors have no answers. And they were doing, as much as I give Boogie credit earlier in the game, the Raptors had them. They were basically running pick and roll with Kawhi. And if you went under, Kawhi was shooting. If you went over, if they switched, he was just going to abuse Cousins, because Cousins is just, that's
absolute.
And we talk about Kevin Durant's injury. We're not really even mentioning Looney's injury. It looked like he got re-hurt. I don't know what his status is coming back, but Cousins, as much as he gives you on the offensive end, he hurts you on that pick and roll switch. Whether he switches or not, Kawhi was just burning them. And they had no idea
he can't guard a guy out top. He just cannot guard anybody with any lateral quickness up top. That's just not his game. And it's not lack of desire. He can't. And so, as you said, 3:05 left. Kawhi is on fire, doing all-time stuff. I actually had heard Brian Windhorst from ESPN reported that they began wheeling the trophy. They started lining up the Raptors locker room. It was in Toronto, as many already know. They started lining up the locker room with trash bags and plastic for the champagne that was about to get put out. Right. And they brought the trophy to the tunnel, and Bill Russell was in the tunnel. They were getting ready to present this trophy, because I'm like you. At this point, I'm like, wow,
there's no way. I mean, Kawhi is just, they can't stop him. And there's a big run and KD's out. I just think it was one punch is too many. And it kind of reminded me a little of that, what was it, 2014 NBA Finals, Miami Heat Spurs, where the Spurs had them dead to rights in Game 6. And they started like putting the ropes around and they were getting ready for the trophy presentation. And Ray Allen hits that.
Ray Allen? Ray Allen, in that corner. Yes. Oh,
it reminds me a lot of that. And what happens? Nick Nurse calls that timeout, 3:05. The next 3 possessions for the Warriors are Clay 3, Curry 3, Clay 3. And then that 9-0 run makes the Warriors up 106-103, and they end up winning. What were your thoughts? Was the timeout crucial to that run? What were your thoughts?
Well, I did a little research on it, and they've changed some of the rules. And at 3 minutes, you can only carry, I think, two timeouts into the last 3 minutes of a game. So you lose any extras. So from what I've gathered, a lot of coaches will call a timeout there because they lose it if they don't.
Yeah, it's either use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it. And so Nurse has done that before. I don't think he did any. I'm second guessing, just like I did earlier with Kerr and who's the general manager of the Warriors, Bill?
Bob Myers.
Bob Myers, and God, what a tear-felt thing. I know I'm skipping around, but his discussion about the KD injury.
Yeah.
But so I'm completely full disclosure. I know I'm second guessing, but when he called that timeout, it gave the Warriors, who I think were beat, were downtrodden, thought they were beat. It gave them a chance to regroup, and they came out on a tear. So whether it was a bad choice or not, it wound up being a really bad choice. I'm not saying it was it worked against him. It's definitely
it gave you the feeling. It gave you the feeling that it let the Warriors kind of go back to the bench and go, okay, stop the bleeding, guys. It's not over. It's only a 6-point game, and as we know, the Warriors know, and I think the Warriors showed as the heart of. I know we hear the old saying, the heart of a champion, and all this stuff. The Warriors are and you mentioned the Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo pod. And I think Russillo has been saying this for a while. He's been a big Warriors guy for a while, but the resiliency and the mental toughness the Warriors must have, because as me and you were sitting there watching, we think they're out. I bet a lot of the guys on that Warrior bench, they won't say it, but there's got to be a couple of guys, whether they're coaches or players, maybe some of the guys that aren't Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, that are thinking, shit, man, KD's out. Kawhi's he's doing this.
We can't stop him.
It's just not in the cards for us. It's just not our year. We can't catch a break. And that timeout, it did feel like it gave at least Curry and Clay a chance to go, guys, hold on. We can score 6 points in 2 possessions. This is nothing. We're right back. And that's exactly what they did. The one thing I'm with you, I don't think Nurse should probably have called it, but what he said post game, exactly what you were saying. That was his reason for calling it. He was going to lose. He actually called back-to-back timeouts because he had 4 of them. And he was like, well, I was going to lose them both at the 3-minute mark. And I just thought my guys could probably use a breather. And Kawhi ended up playing 41. Kyle Lowry played 42 minutes. A lot of his starters were logging big minutes. They probably could have used a breather. And I just think the Warriors, I don't think it was a terrible timeout. I just think the Warriors are mentally tough, and they responded. Now, the part that I don't understand, we already talked about earlier, KD coming back was so big because it finally put that third shooter on the floor.
Right.
The 2 best shooters maybe in all of the NBA, and definitely I think the best shooting backcourt of all time, and the only 2 shooters that were really on the court at that time. How did those 2 guys end up with 3 for 3 on threes in those next 3 possessions? That can't happen.
Well, it wasn't like they were left open, Kevin.
No, but literally Iguodala. I let Iguodala shoot that same shot he made in, what was it, game 2 or whatever, where the Warriors won. I don't care if he's wide ass open. I'm letting anybody shoot that, and I'm putting 3 all over those 2.
Right. I mean, let anybody beat me, anybody on that court, but Curry or Klay Thompson. I mean, that's the way you have to look at it. But now, I mean, we're talking about all this rejuvenated. Curry was not hitting real great in the second half, as I recall. I don't remember when he started, but he doesn't step back out there and Klay hit that 3. I mean, we're not even talking about this. I mean, they hit. Yeah, I mean,
for the game, Curry was only 5 for 14 from the line or from the 3-point range. So it wasn't like it wasn't a Curry fire game or anything like that.
I mean, it was Klay Thompson. I'm telling you, what a stud he is. I mean, he played pretty good defense on. They switched off finally and put him on Kawhi. And he at least has the height and length to give him a little bit of trouble. Iguodala obviously does, but I still think Clay's probably a little more athletic with his age.
And during that little run that Leonard had, where you're right, Iguodala was guarding him for the first 3 of those 4 straight buckets he had, and then they switched Clay on him. Iguodala, there's a couple of times where he reaches down. I don't know if it's his knee or Achilles or calf, whatever he is, he's reaching down on that right leg, and he ain't right. He ain't right. And you're so I have gained so much. I already had a ton of respect for Clay, but I think he just kind of gets lost in the sauce a little bit because Curry is so good. Mm-hmm. Curry is great. When Durant's playing, Durant's so good. Draymond Green, his defense is amazing, and what he does for that team is amazing, and kind of his antics get him talked about a little more. Just Klay Thompson, night in and night out, gets you 25 points, plays really good defense. He'll probably get you about 6 or 7 rebounds on the night too, and
doesn't talk a lot, just does his damn job.
We forget, what was it, the game 4, because they lost, we end up kind of forgetting about it. That game 4 where he came back from that hamstring injury, it looked like he pulled a hamstring, comes back 4 days later and puts on a hell of a night. Yeah. And he's still playing through injury today. And I just think when all's said and done, whether Klay Thompson leaves or stays, whatever, his career is going to get looked back on. That might be the best all-around shooter, like 3-and-D, 3-and defender kind of guy that the game's ever seen. He just does it at all ends of the court all the time. And it's impressive. Him and Curry are just so impressive to me.
It is. I agree with you. And you mentioned Draymond Green, and we might get to some predictions, but I'm sure you realize if he gets one more tech.
Is it just one more? I knew he was 2. Did he get? I can't remember. Did he get a tech last night?
He got a tech last night.
So yeah, he's one away.
And I do think it was a very questionable call, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if Draymond Green goes out, it's over for sure.
Especially now.
And quite honestly, I think it's over anyway, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But if Draymond goes out, there ain't no way. I mean, it is done. Stick a fork in him, over. There just isn't a chance in hell, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I'm a little disappointed. I thought he tried to contain his temper when he did, but come on, Green. I like Green. I really do. I think we're going to see him be an amazing analyst, after his NBA career. He's very well-spoken. I love he's got a lot of Charles Barkley in him. I mean, he says what's on his mind, and he's a smart guy, but you've got to control your emotions there. You've got to. And he's put himself and his team in a predicament because it's hard to envision him not getting one more tech accidentally.
Well, and it was in game 4, I think the last game, where he was 3 techs away at one point, and you could tell it. He was kind of getting onto the refs, and he was doing his normal thing. And that some people say Draymond Green, sometimes they'll have him on too short a leash. I don't think that's true. He yells at the refs all game, and just eventually, if he keeps on doing it, the tech sometimes will seem quick, but it's usually a culmination of how he's been acting the last 10 possessions. It's not usually on that one possession. And you're right. If anyone knows, it's him, how costly it is. Like we just talked about how mentally tough the Warriors are. Draymond Green, you got to feel like you've already cost your team a finals because you let your emotions get in the way.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of other things that happened, and they did go to game 7 and they could have won, but they wouldn't even been in game 7 had Draymond Green not been goaded into punching LeBron in the balls. And now, again, you're 2 techs away. Don't get another tech. Don't even give the refs the chance of taking you out of a game. And you're right. If he gets a tech in game 6, even if they win, if they got to go play a game 7 in Toronto, no Durant, no Draymond Green,
Looney's hurt.
Go over to MyBookie, put the promo code JPP and put all your money on the Raptors, because there's just no way. There's no way they win with that many injuries. At some point, you just can't do it. And if you're Green, like you said, Dad, as much as I respect him and I love watching him play defense, like sometimes when you're watching, just watch him play that rover position on defense. The way he helps and communicates, it is amazing. I mean, he's so good at what he does. And just like we talked about Cousins not being able to switch on the pick and roll, Green does, and does it so well. And you just got to be tougher. You just got to know better. And
you got to be smarter. You have to be smarter than that. And I guess I've never really thought about that. I just said it. He does remind me a lot of Barkley, because Barkley would get himself in situations back. I know you probably didn't get to watch him play much, but his feistiness, his talent, his ability, his emotions would sometimes overreach that and get him in trouble. And Draymond Green's a lot. Now, he's not Barkley. I don't think Green.
No, he doesn't have the skill level as
level.
Barkley, especially offensively.
Right, especially offensively. But he is a must for that team. They got to have him, and they got to have him playing at a high level. And I'm with you. He plays smart defensively. He actually makes pretty good decisions with the basketball offensively. I mean, he's that glue guy, but he's like super freaking glue guy. He's not just a glue guy.
To me, he's like the Rodman form, except for he also does it. There's just so much he does offensively, even when he had 10 points and 10 rebounds, 8 assists. Not a crazy stat line, but it's the little things when he gets the defensive rebound. After playing good defense, he'll get the rebound and push it up the court. And that ends up getting Clay and Steph can then run out to the 3-point line. And now you have the two best shooters of possibly all time on the 3-point line and a cutter, whoever it be, Iguodala. And he usually makes that right decision. There's just so much he does for that team. And you just gotta be smarter. You just have to
be smarter.
Have to be. So,
yeah.
All right, and that's what we're kind of talking about going forward. As of now, I mean, barring any texts in game 6 or 7, the Warriors will go into Thursday night and they'll be in Oracle. We now know for sure this is the last game in Oracle Arena.
Right.
What are your thoughts? Do they stave off elimination and force a game 7? Can they? It's gonna be tough.
Yes, they can. They have the heart of a champion. They are uber talented, but they shouldn't. I mean, the game should be over. I mean, the series should be over in game 6. It really should be. If they win, it will be amazing to me. I'm rooting for it. I want to see a game 7. I will tell you this, Iguodala's stat line, let me look it up for this last game. He played 30 minutes, scored 5 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. He puts up a stat line like that in game 6. It's over. He's got to give him more than that.
And I just don't know how much he has left in the tank. I just don't know.
He better reach and find it somewhere because he has got to show up. You know, he tried to take some shots late in the game, just a few like free throw line shots, long paint shots in the paint, and he wasn't hitting anything. And Iguodala's got to hit some shots and play solid defense. So he's got to take a shot wherever it's hurting. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about take a steroid shot, whatever. He's got to show up and play, or they don't have a chance. He can't do that same stat line. And
I'll mention, and the Warriors, if anybody knows how you can come back from a 3-1 deficit, the Warriors know they've been on the wrong end of that. Yeah, it's happened to them, and it would be interesting to see them flip the script and make this be. If the Warriors say they win this championship or don't, and this is kind of the end of the Warriors dynasty as we know it, where they're just the dominant team, maybe Durant leaves or whatever ends up happening. I think if they could win this championship, I'm going to look back on this three-peat and this 4 championships in 5 years and look back to game 5, the game last night, and them somehow battling back the Durant injury and still come back, and then weathering that storm, and then weathering this Kawhi run, and finding a way to win that game when they just had – I don't think they had any business winning that game. The Raptors were going for blood last night, and the Warriors just wouldn't have it. And now going back to game 6, I think the Warriors have the edge going into Oracle Arena. They're playing, again, like we said, backs against the wall. But this Raptor team, I know they won't go into game 6 with game 7, thinking with the fallback on game 7, because I saw this great Tim Bontemps, who's a writer for ESPN, wrote this. Did you see this? After game 2, apparently Nick Nurse was in the locker room. As you know, the Raptors they went 1-1 in games 1 and 2 in Toronto. And in the locker room, Nick Nurse told his team they had to go get at least one of the 2 games in Oakland, saying they needed to get home court back. And Kawhi Leonard, we talk about how he may not be the best leader, or he doesn't talk much. Apparently, in the locker room, Kawhi Leonard responded with, and I'm going to say the clean version, but he said, F that, let's go to Oracle and get them both. That's the mentality he had, and that's the mentality they went into Oracle with, and they did it. And I think that's something that gets overlooked a little, where Kawhi maybe doesn't talk to us, doesn't talk to the media, doesn't talk to the sideline reporter, and he's kind of just bland. That locker room, they went into Oracle, and after each win, they've walked out not looking like they were like pumped up, jumping up and down, high five, and even when they went up 3-1, they walked out going to the locker room looking like, all right, we still have one more to win. Still need to win another one. And I think that's how they'll go into game 6, and they're going to look to win. I'm so excited for these next couple of games. I wanted to look. Do you know game 6 is Thursday, so they'll get 2 nights rest. Will game 7, will they get 2 nights rest on that one as well, or will that be
Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Yeah, I would say game 7 would be Sunday. It'd be a Sunday late game, probably, is what I would assume.
So that bodes well for the Warriors, I think, if anybody, because Curry and Clay are going to have to go, and Iguodala, as you said, Green, they're going to have to play a lot of minutes, probably 40 plus, maybe closer to the 45 range, and they're going to need every second they can get afterward to recover. I hope it goes 7 just for my viewing purposes, just because I want a game 7. But I think I'm still taking the Raptors. It's hard not to see the Raptors winning this. What were you going to say?
Nothing. The Raptors should win this. If they don't, it'll be an all-time. It'll be an all-time failure in my eyes. And I mean, I'm rooting for Golden State. No question about it. And I know what I was thinking. This is a little bit of a digression, but I thought it was a big deal when KD got hurt, and we didn't talk about Toronto kind of cheering. And I was really
that's what I want to get to. So go ahead, let's get into it.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going there, but and I'm proud of the Toronto players trying to shut them up. I was happy to see that. I was happy to see all the Toronto players line up and shake his hand. It really touched me to see how much it meant to the Golden State Warriors to a person. It really shocked me to see Steph Curry and who was the other player that
Iguodala.
Was it Clay? Iguodala. I mean, walked him out during.
They went to the locker room with him.
Went to the
game's still going. Yeah,
with the game still going. I thought that's a big deal. I mean, they have some love for Kevin Durant, and I was impressed with the care that they all showed. And gosh, Toronto, the Canadians have been shown to be these caring. I don't know if you saw Jimmy Kimmel had a deal where he said just tried to get somebody to talk shit, this Toronto fans to talk some smack on Golden State, and they couldn't. I mean, he couldn't find anybody. They were just too nice. But they literally did cheer when he went down, and that was that. And it wasn't. I say I could have been in that crowd. I'm not talking every single person, but it was a loud cheer when he went down, and it looked like he was hurt. And that reminds me of Michael Irvin getting hurt at Veterans Stadium years ago with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then cheering when Irvin went down. And I don't care. That's shitty. I think that the Raptors, even if they win the championship, they just assume beat you at full strength. I mean, I don't want any questions, any asterisks, nothing. So I thought the players were classy. The players.
I want to respond to both of those. And the first part, so we have this. It seems like this whole finals and really playoffs up to this point, but especially now in the finals where the storylines get created outside of the games because there's not as many games. This Raptor fan base and Jurassic Park and all this, we've kind of put on a pedestal, and it has been the way this team embraces, the way that country embraces the Raptors as a team. It's really neat. And I mean, they have some serious love, and those home crowds in Toronto have been insane. And to see those Jurassic Park where all these people are lining up all over the country, getting outside and watching the games. I mean, it is neat to see, and I like it. But there was a point right after that. I don't know. It's been a killing for Raptor fan base, or for Toronto's fan base, the past 24 into 48 hours, as you're hearing this, on them cheering for KD. And I want to say, yes, they're wrong, 100% wrong for cheering a guy's injury. He went down and clearly was reaching for his Achilles. I think even though they didn't get the slow motion replay that we saw of it looking like it was something, clearly he reached down at that injury and it looked bad. And the look on his face looked like he knew, crap, this is what I was fearing.
He knew, yeah.
And they were cheering. There were a few fans that even at one point you could see in the background, like waving him goodbye. I do want to give a little bit of credence to say right after that, Durant, so the play happens, Durant loses the ball, Ibaka gets it, goes down there and gets a dunk. So they're cheering. Some of those cheers may have been, sweet, we got a dunk, we got a fast break layup, and then they realize how bad Durant was hurt. Some of those cheers were, yes, cheering because they're happy Durant got hurt. I think naturally watching the game, if you're watching your team, it's hard to say part of you's not going to go, oh, wow, that's huge for our team. That is big for the Raptors. That just upped our chances. So I'm not blaming for that thought coming in your head. And yes, they cheered at first, but yeah, credit to the players for, like you said, right away they're like, come on, guys, this is not the time or the place to cheer. And I think later you heard a lot of the fan base cheer KD, like they started a KD chant. And I think once they realized they started cheering, and I think once there's going to be a few bad apples in everything. I mean, there's always going to be some. And I think to rip the whole Raptor fan base as a whole, I think it's wrong to do. I think what is fan short for? It's short for fanatic. And their initial response was, holy crap, Durant just went down. That's huge for the Raptors. Whoa. And they were getting loud. And then I think when they realized, oh, wow, I mean, then it hits you. This dude just probably tried to gut it out, ripped his Achilles. He's going to be, I mean, his whole, not only this year, this finals, his career, and we're going to get into in just a second, his career is in jeopardy now. And I think they realize that. So I wanted to kind of slow down the ripping of Toronto's fan base, because I think spur of the moment, your natural reaction right away as a fan is to go, whoa, that's big for the Raptors. We just got a dunk. All right, maybe we can get a run. Maybe we can take this game 6 and win the finals. And then when you realize the repercussions that are for Kevin Durant, I think they kind of slowed the roll. I'm just glad you mentioned the players for realizing what they did.
I do. I would like to think, Kevin, we're sitting here and we're watching the Mavericks play the Heat, okay? And D-Wade goes down back in the series, in that day. I mean, I would like to think that we would probably go, and be maybe a little excited. The Mavericks got a better chance, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think we would just be hooting and hollering that a great player, a great guy got hurt. And you're right. It was a few people, but it was
and it could have been the people
minority.
That aren't. Yeah. And it usually is. It could have been the few people who maybe don't know basketball as much, and they just see a Warrior turnover and a Warrior player go down and a Raptor dunk, and they just think, woo, Raptors dunk, let's cheer. And there were the guys, you saw the couple people waving goodbye. Those people are just in the wrong. They're looking straight at Kevin Durant. They know who it is. They realize how bad this injury is, and they're waving goodbye. That's effed up. Just don't be a dick. What does Dad always say?
Classless.
Don't be a dick. That's a guy being a dick and being classless. And for those people, I got no answer for you. That's just, they are who they are. But I just think ripping the whole thing as a fan base is bad. Now, to your point with the Warriors players, it clearly showed how much they cared for Kevin Durant, but with Curry going back and Iguodala going back with him, and then hearing, you mentioned it earlier, Bob Myers, heartfelt. I mean, him on the podium, and I don't think that was him putting on a show. That was, I think that was true emotion. Steve Kerr even said after the game, they asked him, and it was really Steve Kerr really looked like he had, Steph Curry was asked after the game. He looked like he was all over the place, and even stopped at one point with Doris Burke and was like, I'm sorry, I don't know where I'm at. I'm praying for Kevin Durant. I'm praying for Kevin.
I swear, I thought he was going to cry, Kevin. I thought he was going to be emotional right there. You could tell it. He was deeply moved by what happened. Deeply
moved. And then Kerr, after the game, the reporters were asking him, he goes, man, it's a weird feeling in our locker room, because at one moment it's a huge win for us as a team and to extend the series, but at the same time, it's a devastating loss, and a brother, a teammate, basically a sibling just went down, and we know how serious this is, not for Game 6 and Game 7. For him as a human, this is huge. And I think the team really cares. Now, that said, do you put any blame on the Warriors for Kevin Durant coming back?
No, and I think I alluded to that Kerr could have played him less minutes and all that. But you know what? KD is, like I like to say, a grown-ass man. He had everything not to play for. If he would have said, the doctors cleared him. I feel confident the doctors cleared him. I can't imagine.
Someone did, whether they did it rightly or wrongly. Someone cleared him. Someone told him he could go back out there.
I'm just not hating on the Warriors for that, because ultimately that was Kevin Durant's decision to play or not to play. And I think it's obvious now he shouldn't have, but he did. It's on him. And, I'm not trying, I hate it. I don't put any blame on the Warriors. No, I do not. I just don't.
So I'm partly in agreement with you where Kevin Durant is, as you said, he's a grown-ass man. He's a superstar. He knows, for anyone who's not aware of, most NBA fans will be aware of the contract situation, but Kevin Durant is a free agent after this season, and he knows if it's an Achilles he's worried about, he knows if he were to tear that Achilles, it completely impacts. He might still get max money, and it might not change up his money, but it impacts how teams think about him moving forward in this offseason. And he's a 30-year-old who now is going to be coming off a devastating sports injury. We've seen it in all sports. A torn Achilles is tough. It's possible he can come back, but it's tough. And so you're right. He's a grown man. He knows whether he knows what he's getting into, and whether the Warriors staff cleared him and shouldn't have, I don't know. But I would assume, from what I've heard from Kevin Durant, I bet he got a private consultant too and talked to someone else, and he knew. I think what was at risk coming back, and he decided to gut it out. And more power to him. He decided to gut it out for his team because he realized, I really want to win this. Just like Steph Curry seemed like he was feeling for a brother, I think Durant wanted to come back for his brothers, for his teammates.
I do too.
And so to that, I don't blame the Warriors totally. But there's something that rubs me the wrong way where over the weekend, I don't know if you saw some of this, after Game 4, there was some chatter, some articles came out, and it wasn't Steph Curry. Steph Curry and Klay did mention, they asked Steph about Klay playing in that Game 4, like I mentioned earlier, where he played great. He's like, it's the finals. Even if you're hurt, you just got to step up and play, and you got to do this. I don't think it was a shot at Durant at all. I think it was him just saying Klay's just a warrior, and that's just what you do in the finals. But there was the articles that started coming out via The Athletic and some other, and I think Brian Windhorst and some other ESPN guys too, where they were saying some in the Warrior locker room, and they didn't clarify whether it's players, coaches, personnel, whatever it was. Some are questioning where Kevin Durant's at and where he's come with this injury, and they're a little disappointed. And whether that be true or not, I think that's the point where Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, Bob Myers, someone, even if they're saying it internal, I think you come out to the media and say, F whoever put this article out, Kevin's hurt. If he can come back, sweet. If he can't, we know he wants to win. We know he wants to be out there.
Right.
And that's what I put a little blame on Steph Curry or Klay Thompson or Draymond Green or some of them. Because I just think whether those were true articles or not, and that could have been from the 14th guy on the bench that said that to The Athletic. So some saying is true technically, but I think that's where the star player, and if you're Bob Myers, you come out and go, you know what? If Kevin's good to go and he's ready to go, we would love to have him. If he's not, he's not. I mean, it's just whatever was right for him. And that's where I blame a little, because it did seem like there was pressure over the weekend for Kevin Durant to get back out there. Yeah. And he got back out there, and it doesn't look like he should have been. And I saw Charles Barkley kind of said similar things where he said he blamed the Warriors for Kate and D out there, saying that they should have backed him up over the course of the last 2 weeks, not just the last weekend. And that's where I was a little upset with him.
You make a good point. I'm with you. I hear what you're saying, but we don't know what transpired between those guys in the locker room. And I just have to believe that Curry, Klay, Kerr, the GM had to have told Kevin Durant, look, we'd love to have you back. There's no doubt you can help us, but you've got impending free agency. This is your future. You got to do what's right for you. And if Kevin Durant didn't get his own doctor's opinion, shame on him.
Yeah, and I bet he did. I think you're right, and that's why the most of blame doesn't go on the Warriors. I think it's just an injury. Shit sucks, and it happens. He tried to gut it out. He knew what was possible, and he tried to go out and play, which I respect him for. Yeah, I'm not speaking just for me. I think I'm speaking clearly for both of us. Anyone who thinks Kevin Durant doesn't have the heart or was holding out on the Warriors or is being petty, I think he showed you last night. That dude is all heart and all class and whether he's thinking about leaving or not, he wants to win this finals for the Golden State Warriors. And he laid it all out there, and it sucks. I felt so bad for him seeing him go down.
Me too.
And it is interesting. And Jalen Rose brought this up a little bit, but it's interesting the way the culture of sports goes, where for professional athletes, it seems like we always throughout this, and I have said it a little, and most of the time I said it was tongue in cheek and joking. But either way, the rumors were out there in the Twitterverse, and all this was out there saying, oh, he's soft. He really didn't want it. He isn't committed to the team. Why isn't he trying to get out there? He's in the locker room, not on the bench. What's going on? And then he comes back, and then he gets hurt. And it's like, we're not thinking about the guys. The only one that really thinks about Kevin Durant's future is Kevin Durant. And it's not us. We just want to see him come out there and play for us. And Jalen Rose said, I think he was pulling the quote from someone else, but he said, people will bring flowers to your funeral, but they don't bring soup when you're sick. And that's what he said about Kevin Durant. And I thought, wow, because now we are, even not just us, but everyone's out there like, oh man, Kevin Durant tried to get out. I feel bad for him. But some of those same people a week ago were saying, where's KD at? Why isn't he playing? Why isn't he trying to play? The same people wanted Kawhi Leonard to play last year for the Spurs. And it's just, and we've seen this as a business. Look at Isaiah Thomas. He'll tell you this league's a business. What happens to Kevin Durant this offseason? Do the Knicks offer him a max deal? Do the Warriors offer him a max deal? This is a 30-year-old athlete whose Achilles is blowing out. I don't know how maybe he recovers, maybe he doesn't, but that skews how people will think about him.
Wow. Since you opened that, I have been anxious to talk about this pending free agency. So can we do that now?
Yeah. LJ, as you're editing this, is rolling his eyes. But yes, let's open this bag and go into what happens to KD post this finals, regardless of what happens, if it's a torn Achilles.
Ultimately, I think this has potential to make him more likely to stay with the Warriors.
I agree, actually.
I really say that because the Warriors, I could see the Warriors saying, man, you gave everything you had. Here's your max contract. Get well, come back when you can. And I believe he will be back. I think he takes care of his body. He's not a big, heavy guy. I mean, he's tall, but I think he can come back and recover from this. I can't see why why would Anthony Davis and or Kyrie Irving go to New York now when KD's going to be out for everything I've seen? You're looking at least 6 months, six months. And I hear a lot of people talking about a year in his prime. I can't
because
see AD.
It's scary to come back because that same thing, if it's not right, it's more apt, I think, to blow. And the more times it happens, the less likely you are to ever come back.
And I will tell you, this is interesting. I found out over the weekend, talked to my old buddy, Dr. Doug. It's funny. Achilles tends to happen a little more to people that are actually in their mid 30s. So he was telling me, I'm in my 50s now. And, he's like, you're probably past the age. It's probably not going to happen to you. It's like in your 30s is when it tends to happen. And that's kind of weird. One more little bit of trivia too. Do you know why it's called an Achilles heel?
No, not at all.
Okay. There's a Greek mythological character named Achilles whose mother dipped him in the river Styx by his ankle, dipped him in the river Styx to protect his body. But she was holding his ankle around his Achilles. So that's the only part of his body that didn't get dipped into the river Styx. So that was the only vulnerable part of his body. Thus, the name Achilles heel.
That's the Achilles heel because the vulnerable spot. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
I thought it was kind of interesting. But so I want to hear your take on it. But I think this has a lot of potential to keep him with Golden State. I really do.
So it would be, and we've seen it before, as I kind of alluded to earlier. We've seen it before with Danny Ainge and Isaiah Thomas with the Celtics, where it's a business, and if you can't get ahead of an injury, then you get ahead from it. So I could see the Warriors possibly not wanting to sign a guy to a 4-year max deal who's coming off an Achilles injury at 30. But at the same time, if you're the Warriors, you could really discredit the whole thing about how there's the Warriors and KD, and there's Steph and Clay and Draymond and KD, and it's this whole little rift. If you go to him and go, man, you tried. You gave it everything you had. I don't care what the reports were saying about us questioning you. We never questioned you. Here's your max deal. Get better. Like you said, get better when you can. And think about this. If you're Durant, would you rather – he's probably going to come back at some point next year. It's going to be – because this is the worst time to get this kind of injury. This is as long of – like you could break an ankle or break a bone, one thing, but this is a torn Achilles, as you said, 6 to 8 months at the latest point in the NBA season. So he's likely out probably – until late in next season, playoffs maybe.
I would say till February, March.
We just don't know. Draymond or DeMarcus Cousins came back around All-Star break, around January-ish, off the same injury, and he hurt his around All-Star break the year before. So this is now in the finals, but it's different. DeMarcus Cousins is a big guy. Cousins, KD, as you said, is not that at all. So it's different, and everyone recovers differently, but we just don't know. But if you're KD, you could come back to a team where just get back when you're healthy. Know your team can carry the load with that. They might not be as good, obviously. I think we can put to rest the Warriors better without KD. They're different. I don't think they're better. No one gets better without when losing the second maybe best player in the NBA. But they'll be fine. They'll keep the ship afloat, and KD can come back when he's ready to a team that's good. Now, if you leave and go to New York, where I'm going to get into this in a second. I don't know who goes with him. Now he comes back to a team that he doesn't know, he's unfamiliar with, and he's coming off an injury. So it's just not the same comfortability where I see this happening where I think it could be easily where, say, the Lakers find a way, whether it be a 3-team trade or whatever, they find a way to get Anthony Davis. Jimmy Butler stays with the 76ers. Cool. It seems like from all things I'm hearing, Kyrie, there's a lot of rumors about Kyrie to the Brooklyn Nets.
I've heard that,
and he's from that area. What if no one is there at New York? Because like you said, if you're AD or if you're Kyrie, maybe you're just more apt to go somewhere else because you're like, I just don't know what KD's got to go to New York. And it's not like that New York front office has anything to show for themselves as what they've done recently. So what if all of a sudden there's no one there in New York but RJ Barrett? If you're Kevin Durant, do I want to come to a blown Achilles to this team who may be a lottery team without me, and I'm going to have to be the stud, or he can come back to the Warriors and just get back to me when he'll get back to himself whenever he can. And when he's ready, he's ready. I think you're right. I think I was on the thing thinking Durant's gone after this offseason.
And I think he
changes
was.
everything. I think this changes everything.
So who's the big loser? Who is the biggest loser in this? The New York Knickerbockers.
New York Knickerbockers.
I mean, golly.
I was telling a Nick friend of mine, I was like, you know what's going to happen now, because they tweeted something about it, and I was talking to him. I was like, you know what happens now? The Knicks are going to get screwed, and they're going to end up with Tobias Harris, some overpaid shooting guard like they did with Tim Hardaway a few years ago, R.J. Barrett, and DeAndre Jordan. That's going to be their team next year, because I think Kevin Durant stays at Golden State now. That's what I see. I think it's more likely, at least. And I think you're so right. The Knicks are the big losers in this.
Big losers.
And you hate to see it for the whole Knickerbockers.
I don't hate on the Knickerbockers, but there's no love lost for them. I've never loved the Knicks. So, whatever. It is what it is.
Wow. I thought we were going to be a short pod. We've got a little long-winded. I should have known this would happen, me and you talking hoops. I mean, this is what kind of ends up going every time. Before we get out of here, though, I did want to bring up, this should be coming out. I believe it's possible you're listening to this Wednesday, so maybe Game 7 is about to happen between the Blues and the Bruins in the NHL Finals. But you may be listening this Thursday, and it may have already happened, and who knows what ends up going on. But did you see how the Blues, the St. Louis Dispatch in St. Louis, the paper there, kind of may have jinxed the Blues? Did you see this over the weekend?
I heard about it. I didn't see it.
So Sunday from what I was reading, the Blues E edition, which is their electronic edition that people can get early, there was a congratulatory post. They kind of had a whole thing where, one, they said thank you to the city of St. Louis. They congratulated them on the city earning their first Stanley Cup title ever in franchise history. And even there was even a thank you note from the team's owner saying thank you for everything you've done. This is a big moment, not only for us as a franchise, but for you as a city and as a fan base. And as you know, that was Sunday morning. Game 6 was played Sunday night. The Bruins, of course, won 5-1 in blowout fashion. And now it goes back to Game 7 in Boston. And I just have to feel like the Blues jinxed themselves. Now, it did come out that apparently these images were leaked and got out somehow, and this is what the Blues were trying to show potential advertisers, what it'll look like when the Blues win the Stanley Cup, if they do, and here's what you can put your, used car ad by or whatever you put in the paper,
right.
Yeah. So it's not like they thought the Blues won, but still, the fact that these got out, somebody really fudged up their job there, I think.
This sounds like the Starbucks cup on Game of Thrones or something.
Yeah.
Somebody losing their job.
It's not new. This happens everywhere. Both teams, like right now, the Raptors and Warriors are already preparing for, especially if this goes to Game 7. But even now, they're preparing, both cities and franchises, like the academies all across Golden State and Toronto, they're already getting their shirts in for Toronto 2019 NBA champs or Golden State 2019 NBA champs, because they want to put those in stores the minute that happens, because fans will go buy it up.
Sure.
And it's like that Sports Illustrated post or ad you always see right after. It's like instantly after the Super Bowl, you'll see the New England Patriots have just won their 6th Super Bowl. Get your memorabilia now. So they always have these ads ready. It's just the fact that the St. Louis paper let them get out. It's just it's a bad visual. And now Game 7, Bruins Blues. I know we all picked the Blues. Where you at? Let's just go ahead, and it might look terrible on Thursday morning, but what you got? Blues or Bruins?
Blues. I'm still going with the Blues.
Still sticking with them. I think I am too, just because, as we've mentioned plenty of times on this pod, the city of Boston has had plenty of titles. I think it's time for someone else to get one, and it'd be cool to see St. Louis win one. And I'm going to feel bad for the paper if they end up losing. Everyone's going to blame the paper, and it sounds like it was just a goof up, and it's not like they really mistakenly thought the Blues had already won. So,
that's right. And you won't even know this, but Dewey beats Truman. There was
no clue.
It was the paper put out that I can't remember the guy's first name, that Dewey beat Truman in a presidential election. And that's not what happened, but they put the paper out beforehand. It was kind of a famous one of those that you're talking about.
Well, so as we wrap up, I did want to share a little quick thing I saw with you, since this has pretty much been an all finals pod, mostly NBA. We're recording this Tuesday. What is it? June
the 11th.
June the 11th. So 22 years ago today was who many call the GOAT, who you call the GOAT, NJ's Blue Game. And I wanted to tell you a neat little story I was reading, that 22 years ago today, MJ gave and signed his game-used shoes to Utah Jazz ball boy Preston Truman. The reason he did this, Jordan befriended Truman because he remembered his pregame routine, which was applesauce on graham crackers. So because the ball boy remembered this weird little thing that Michael Jordan did before every game, Michael Jordan decided to sign and give him his game-worn MJ Blue game. Now that game is like maybe the most iconic MJ game of all time.
Right.
And he gave him those shoes, signed it. And did you know Truman later sold those shoes in 2013 for the small price of $104,765. So little ball boy at the time, there's actually a picture, I'll post it in show notes, but the little ball boy at the time, Preston Truman, just because he remembered applesauce and graham crackers, back in, what was that, 97? Got him $104,000 in 2013. So it's the little things in life. It's the moral of the story. Remember the little things. That's all it is.
Wow.
I just thought it was a cool story. And I know you like MJ, and I thought I didn't know that until today, so I thought I'd share it with you.
No, I've never heard that. Wow. It's the only place I saw MJ play live, by the way, at the Utah Stadium. I happened to be in Salt Lake City on business one time, and I saw the Bulls were in town. I thought, well, I'm just going to call it. It wasn't SeatGeek at the time. It was whatever it was, NBAtickets.com. And I called them, and they had 2 left on like the 6th row. They were like $75 a piece. I'm there on business. I got nothing to do. I got to go, and I had 2 tickets. I sold the other one for face value. I mean, I was just,
because you just
so
wanted to go see MJ play.
I just wanted to go see MJ play. Stockton and Malone. I mean, it was a great game too. Yeah,
That's pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet.
All
Maybe
right,
I saw Preston Truman. Maybe I saw him.
You probably did. You probably did, actually.
Maybe I did.
All right. Well, shout out to Preston, and shout out to the finals have been great. We're getting a game 7 in the NHL. We're getting a game 6, maybe 7 in the NBA. It's going to be fun. I can't wait to watch it. You don't have to worry about. See, Dad didn't even know what tickets he was getting into. Right now, he might have been trying to decide which ones are better, which ones are worse. He didn't even have to worry about that
lights.
now.
I'm telling you, those were green light tickets.
Now you search SeatGeek. You get those tickets. Put in the promo code ACAA. Whether you're trying, I doubt any of our listeners are going to the finals, but whether you're going to the College World Series, go see the OMAHOGS play, or if you're going to a show, put in the promo code ACAA. Get $20 off your first ticket purchase, and then if you're trying to bet on any of these games, like Dad said, if Draymond Green gets another tech in Game 6, put the house, as we would tell Uncle Tony, put the house down on the Raptors. Go to MyBookie, put in the promo code JPP, and get a $50% extra on your deposit. Just all kinds of stuff we're throwing at you. And our friends are trying to help. And now, Dad, we just gotta wait. Just wait for some finals, baby. I can't wait.
I can't either. Exciting
time.
I got to give one quick shout out. One quick shout out before we sign off. So I'm a granddad. You're an uncle.
Hell yeah.
Our favorite youngest listener, Nala, Danielle, Ali, we love you. And Kelly Soul, we love you guys. We're excited.
So happy, so excited. It's been a big week in the Lutheringer clan. I'll tell you that much.
Been a big week in the Lutheringer clan. Sure has.
We welcome the cutest little baby. And maybe, I may be a tad biased, but I think it's the cutest baby I've ever seen. I went in,
by the way, so I went in to see Kelly, and it was, after Nala had been born, and the nurse that was kind of let us in the door, she goes, "Are you going to room like 202? I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh my God, that's the cutest baby I've ever seen." This was a nurse in the baby ward.
I mean, we may be biased. That's not biased.
She knows. I mean, she knows. So there you go.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah, big shout out. It's a huge week for us, and we are. I've been thinking about you a lot, Kelly and Soul, and man, it's awesome. I'm an uncle. You're a granddad. We used to call you Pops, but now you really are Pops.
I'm really a Pops. That's right.
All right. So for Uncle Kev and the true Pops, we're going to sign off. We'll have LJ back next week. We'll get into a little bit of that Led Zeppelin stuff we talked about. Of course, react to some of this crazy final stuff, and I'm sure a ton more. But for another week of the JPP pod, peace out.
Peace out.